4. Back at home, back in class. Many persons thought that when I started to call Dr. Alvin Willis my dad, it was simply a matter of convenience. Not true. It started when he first brought me back to consciousness by immersing me in that tub of warm water and bathing me like his own child. Dr. Willis continued to act as if he had no choice but to care for me and to protect me from a future of untold misfortunes. The doctor at the hospital had arranged for me to be transported to my new home by the very ambulance that brought me there. I don't know who was more excited about this transition, Michael or myself. I guessed that being brought up in a black middle-class household of 5 siblings teaches you either to be overly concerned with those in your care or adversely to look out only for yourself. Michael's fingerprints were all over my case. He remained at the hospital so that he could accompany the ambulance back to the flats. So when we drove up to the apartment, it was Michael who wheeled me in my wheelchair. Being the ever-sensitive person that he is, Michael had gone back to his flat, collected all of my belongings, and brought them to the apartment. He had prepared what used to be the guest's bedroom in the professor's apartment, as if it was now my only abode. That guy is going to make someone a good husband one day. Soon, we 3, that is, Michael, myself, and Dr. Willis, were gathered around a small dinner table, plotting our next move. According to the doctor, we had 2 immediate objectives. The first was to raise the funds to pay for my tuition and to do so within 24 hours, as the window for course registration for this semester was effectively closed. The second was to get me accepted into the classes for which I had pre-registered. Dr. Willis came back into the dining room to say that he had obtained an early appointment with the president of Miami University, Dr. Shriven, to discuss my case. He now wanted some particulars. My new dad was extraordinary in the way he developed critical friendships. One of his friends was Jackie, who was the secretary to the president. Later that evening, he was back on the phone with Jackie, outlining my case. Name, Eric Johnston. Age, 21. Student number, 1946441. Year, senior. Faculty, College of Arts and Sciences. Major, history and literature. Dad always believed that if you wanted to get help that would really make a difference, first you had to find someone who really understood how the system worked. Jackie had already prepared her brief to be presented to the president just prior to the meeting with Dr. Willis, the visiting professor. Actually, this would be the first time that the president would be meeting in the flesh with this visiting faculty member. But Jackie also knew how the president was likely to proceed in solving this problem. First, he will contact the Dean of Student Affairs to get a transcript of Mr. Johnson's academic performance. Then he's likely to contact Dr. David Kramer, Miami's Treasurer and Senior Vice President, SVP, for Finance and Business Services. Now, the secretaries to all these high-level officials were accustomed to being in constant contact with Jackie, the secretary in the office of the president of the university. Sometimes you had to wonder who was really running that show, the deans and vice presidents or their secretaries. The last words from Jackie to Dr. Willis that evening was, "Leave it to me, I'll take care of it." What actually she was going to do, none of us was any the wiser. Early Monday morning, At exactly 8 a.m., Jackie called the secretary to the dean of students. Hey Jenny, I need to give you a heads up. President will be calling your boss about a student. Name is Eric Johnston. See if you can pull his records and summarize it for your boss to present to the president. Get such information as his current status, his GPA, and any other relevant matters. And also do me a favor. Share this information with Cheryl Ann over at the SVP office. He will need it also. The meeting with the president was set for 9 a.m. Dr. Willis arrived at the president's office about 5 minutes before the appointed time and was warmly greeted by Jackie. This was only the second time he had met her, the first being when she had to personally make an excuse for the failure of the president to attend a meeting of new faculty for unforeseen reasons. Jackie led the introduction. Mr. President, this is our new visiting professor, Dr. Alvin Willis from Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Willis, welcome to Miami University. Sorry I was not able to meet you before now. Thank you, Mr. President. I am sorry this meeting would not be under such happier circumstances as the former would have been. Yes? Why do you say that? Well, sir, Mr. President, over the weekend, I have had to rescue one of your students in this university and rush him to the emergency ward of the hospital. Jackie was right on the ball. Here is the medical report, sir. Dr. Willis continued. It seems that this student was homeless, living on the streets of Oxford. Homeless? How did you happen to know him? Well, when I arrived here, the office of the Dean of Faculty assigned him to be my assistant. He helped me establish myself in every aspect of living accommodations here in Oxford. For 2 weeks prior to the start of classes, this student would arrive at my apartment at 8 a.m. and help me solve every conceivable issue that I may have had, eating dinner with me until he took leave of his assignment in the evening hours. So what happened? Asked the president. Well, it appears as if he had lost his financial support when his grandma died and was living on the street with no visible means of even getting a meal. On Friday evening, some students, whom I suppose he knew, took him to a pub in town for some drinks. He drank too much beer on an empty stomach and developed alcohol toxicity in his liver. By the time they had dropped him by my place, which he had the smart sense to suggest, because he had practically nowhere else to go, his consciousness was fading fast. I gave him a bath in a tub of warm water, took him out, dressed him with whatever clothes I had that would fit him, and placed him on the bed in my guest room. When I returned to the room, I was seeing the white of his eyes, so I immediately called 911 for an ambulance. Browsing through the stack of papers that Jackie had given him, President Shriven noted, but this report is saying that he was discharged into your care. Yes, sir. I went up to the hospital and rescued him so that he would not have to go back to living on the street. He can stay with me for the rest of the semester. I will take care of his lodging and boarding. But we need to get him back into his classes, and that's why I'm here. How can we do that? Dr. Willis was not sure whether that question was directed at him or to Jackie, the president's secretary. I was hoping that the university would have some emergency funds to pay for his tuition and books and get him back up and running as fast as you can. I think I will need to speak to the Dean of Students' Affairs. I will get him on the line for you immediately, sir. I am sorry for all your pain, Dr. Willis, the president continued in a lamentable tone. This surely is not the welcome we were planning for you. rescuing one of our students who is homeless? We will get on it today and let you know what we have come up with later this evening. Dr. Willis left the president's office with high expectations. As he would put it, his expectations were not high simply because the president had said he will come up with something by the end of the day, but more so because of how Jackie, the president's secretary, was up to her task of bringing the right persons and the right information at the right time to her boss. The professor believed that if this secretary continued to perform like this, the president would surely find his solution. The meeting with the SVP and the Dean of Student Affairs was set for 2:30 p.m. All parties arrived on time and were ushered into the president's office. "Gentlemen, what do we have here?" Dr. Shriven started out. The Student Affairs Dean was on the ball. "Mr. President, we have a student who has been living in the street as a homeless person. Tell us more about him, Jim." "Well, first of all, he is a black student, and that has some of its own sensitivities." "Right. But how has he been doing academically?" "I'm glad you asked. That is where it gets real tricky. This student has a perfect 4.0 GPA as of the last semester." "You've got to be kidding me," murmured the SVP for Finance. "Not really," continued the dean. "As a matter of fact, we had started to flag Mr. Johnson as a possible valedictorian for the class at the commencement next year." Turning to the SVP for Finance, the president posed the inevitable question. "So what do we do, Dave?" "Well, it depends on what you want to do." But the Dean of Student Affairs was not done with presenting his case. He had been thoroughly briefed by his secretary. "Wait a minute before you go there. This Eric guy was on the track and field team for the last 2 years. In his first year, he won 3 first division gold medals for his performance. And then, in his second year, he won 5 medals, causing Miami's ranking in track and field to rise from 18th to 7th in the MAC ranking. But as I understand it, right now he is not on the team," the president retorted. "That is true, sir. But how would the headline read? Black student that starred in track excellence, bringing untold honor to Miami University, now has to be rescued by a visiting professor from hunger and homelessness in his final year? That's not a good image builder." The president murmured. "Well, Mr. President, you can award him a bursary and stipend from the President's Reserve Fund. We have calculated that it would cost you about $20,000 for the year. And last year, your reserve fund had about $63,000 left over at the end of the year." "Yes, that sounds like a good plan. It shows compassion, consideration, and that we are not prepared to leave anyone behind, especially if they had already given so much to the university in varsity sports." Yes, was the consensus of all present. "How soon can you prepare such a letter of award?" "I can have it on your desk by tomorrow." "Great. Thanks, gentlemen. Good job." Dr. Shriven had always been a very compassionate president. He really had this university at heart. But there were others in the administration whose function it was to take care of the image of the presidency in the university. Once they became involved in this solution, things started to drift towards it becoming a circus show. The marketing manager was told that this financial award was to be presented within 24 hours, and immediately went to work on how to get meaningful opportunity picks from the event. At first, he toyed with the idea of having Eric receive his award letter from the president while he was in his hospital bed, only to be informed that Eric had already been released. He was severely rebuked for suggesting that maybe Eric can return to the hospital just for this one event. Don't even think of it. He settled on the president presenting the award to Eric at his new home in the visiting professor's apartment. The only problem was that he was only able to get the hospital to send a nurse to be at the bedside. The doctors promptly refused, and an intravenous bottle to be mounted at the bedside while Eric received his award in bed. Nobody wanted to be part of this clown show. Not Michael, nor the professor, and not even I. But the reality was that I had little choice because, as was explained to me, the president was going to be delivering a bursary for tuition and a small stipend, in addition to a book credit against which to charge all of my books for the new term. The function of the Office of Marketing is to reap as many credits as are possible, so the show went on without any mention of the location of the photo shoot. As for Michael, he did not leave my bedside for 3 days after I had returned to apartment living. Michael had insisted in sleeping next to me in case I got up and needed help to get to the bathroom or something like that. The truth is that I was gaining back my strength rapidly, and on both nights, I quietly got out of the bed without disturbing Michael. Oh boy, was he upset, insisting that I should have woken him up anyway, just in case. By Tuesday, Michael and myself had bought the necessary books from the campus bookstore, and on Wednesday, I was actually and legitimately back in classes where I always wanted to be.